We had a working PA system an hour ago.
This is an amazing event. You should sign up now. Click here.
What's the other guy called? Zuck. Oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
So why can IBM fork off?
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Welcome to Cloud Native Media number 8. Thank you. And it's great to see so many people here yet again. It's been a month and a half since we were last here. What happened? We had Glastonbury. Who went to Glastonbury? Anyone go to Glastonbury? No one in the room went to Glastonbury. Wrong crowd. All right, we're all too. Did anybody watch Glastonbury on TV? Yeah. Favourite acts? Rick Astley. Yeah. Guns N' Roses. Yeah. Arctic Monkeys. All right, very good. Glad you enjoyed it. What else happened? There's something with Hugh Edwards. So, who's been here before? Fantastic. And who's new? About half and half. It's always good. It's always good to have a bunch of new people in the room. We love to see you. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for joining our community. So coming up tonight, we've got Ashley. That was actually taken here on May the 18th. So Ashley, I've known for a very long time. He's done a load of cool stuff with radio and TV, and he's going to talk about some of it tonight. Yeah, I mean, I'll leave you to fill people in on the naughty details. So that's all great. And then we've got Tim, who's going to talk about dead ends on the road to the cloud. So who are we? We are an informal group. We're not a society. We're not an organisation. We don't make money. We don't ask you to pay anything. We just want you to come along and enjoy our events and share knowledge and network. And please do so. And please take that opportunity to do so. Cloud is, well, I like to call it computing infrastructure defined and dynamically controlled by software. I know I swapped the words around a bit, but same thing. What's cloud native? Well, this is from David's presentation last time. You know, it's basically deciding to do something different, I think is my summary of all of this. There's no point in just chucking stuff in the cloud and carrying on the same way. The point of using the cloud is doing something different. And unless you make a conscious decision, a business-wide decision to do something different, you're not going to make the cloud native grade. And why cloud native media? Well, we're here for collaboration. We're here because we can't all know everything, much as we'd love to. We can't all know everything. We need to learn from each other, and we need to collaborate to make the best products and the best stuff. We have a code of conduct. It's a serious thing. I will give you a moment. Thank you very much. Organisers, I'm the one without hair. He's the one with some hair. Okay, thank you. Sponsors, who's going to talk about TechX? Richard.
Just to say, we're absolutely ecstatic to support Cloud Native Media. We're committed to the principles of Cloud Native Media, and thank you to all the team who contribute. So, enjoy this evening.
Thank you. Archiva, is Greg going to talk about Archiva?
Hello everyone, welcome to Archiva. Thank you very much for coming along. We're, as ever, delighted to host Cloud Native Media and learn from all of the expertise, insight and experience of those attending and those speaking. So thank you everybody, and I hope you enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Great, and finally?
Cool, headlining sponsor. Hi, I'm director of Livewire. We're an infrastructure development company. We help companies build cloud native infrastructure, both medium-sized companies all the way up to multinationals. If you're interested in understanding a bit more about cloud native and the work that we do, I suggest you look at our last meetup where I did a presentation on the meaning behind what is cloud native. Thank you.
Fantastic. And of course, that is a talk available on YouTube, which you can subscribe to, yeah? And it's free to subscribe to channels on YouTube, and we want you all to do so. And that includes that person there watching on the screen. Yes. Yeah, you. Yeah. Subscribe, yeah? All right, so thank you very much. There's a like button as well. There's all of that. Watch some more videos. We've got quite a few up there now. There's some really good ones out there. I think I saw Andy Hooper in here earlier. Your video is really good. Obviously, everybody's video is really good, but Andy's does particularly well in the ratings on YouTube. Yours does well too. What have I got myself into? Community diary. Oh yeah, what we've got coming up. So it's a bit quiet for the summer on the meetups front, but we've got Serverless London tomorrow. We've got a SMPTE UK summer evening. That's happening next week over at Deluxe, I believe. London DevOps is back on the 19th. They're online, same night as the SMPTE thing, so, you know, take your pick. Cloud Native London, we love them because they have a great meetup and they have a similar name to us, so obviously that makes them good. AWS User Group UK, they have an August one. And we shall hopefully be back on the 6th of September. And I know for the past few ones we've put up the wrong date. We put up a date here and we've done it a week or two later. So obviously subject to change, but we're hoping to do one on the 6th of September back in here after everyone's had a lovely summer holiday. Some conferences are coming up. Obviously, who's going to IBC? Yeah, lots of people going to IBC. For those who don't know, who don't work in media, IBC is a beer festival. It's a Heineken festival, right? For media people. Media people go to Amsterdam and they drink a lot of Heineken. And that, I mean, look, it's not even a joke. It's true. DevOps Days London, that's a good one if you fancy that. There's DTX. There's a new festival. I've got festivals on the brain. A new conference called RTC On. That's about streaming. That's a video streaming conference. That's over in Poland. The DPP leaders briefing and reInvent. I was lucky enough to go to reInvent last year. I know not many people do. I say lucky enough. It's a week of jet lag. I wouldn't get too excited about it if you're going. But anyway, there we go. So some news. I'm not going to mention the big story again. So this is another big story, obviously, in cloud native media. Microsoft has given up on their Azure Media Services platform. I've seen various different bits of commentary about this. Some people not surprised, some people very surprised. I think it's interesting because we've seen, maybe we've seen an inflection point where hyperscalers are saying, actually, we're not going to do everything in-house anymore. We're going to grow the partner network and work on that. Or maybe it's just that Microsoft has another dud like Zune or whatever. So I don't know. We can talk about that later in the pub if you like. MoveIt. I like to move it. I like to move it. So obviously this is a story that the MoveIt software from Progress got a bit hacked. And I think it's another reminder of why a good cloud native workflow doesn't push people's personal details around in files. Does it? No, because ultimately putting things in files makes them vulnerable to getting nicked. Whereas if you use zero trust and short-term keys, one-time keys, you're not going to get your personal data stolen. So thank you very much. And that's obviously been a devastating hack for a lot of big names. Oh yes. And the BBFC is going to use, it's partnering with AWS and the Bath University, I think, was also linked to that, about AI ratings of movies. So we're going to get, I'm sorry, Dave, you can't watch that. So that's either awesome and exciting or a bit sinister, depending on your point of view. Finally, this is the story about Elon and what's the other guy called? Zuck. Oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So they're going to have a cage fight. They've also launched Zuck's launched a rival to Twitter called Threads. I don't know. Has anyone joined Threads? Maybe. So we're on Threads. Our Cloud Native Media's got on Threads. But we'll see how that pans out. Cloud Native News, David.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to CNN. Here we go. Great. So we'll go straight in. And again, I apologize, my ones are always much more wordier than his more image-based. But anyway, when serverless goes serviceless. So hands up who got affected by the US East 1 outage. 1, 2, really just 2? Oh, okay. Congratulations on either not being hosted in US East 1 or having multi-cloud or a strategy that didn't affect you. So for those who are not familiar with the outage, last month there was a major outage in US East 1 region, AWS. It was initially reported as an issue to do with their serverless product called AWS Lambda. It quickly spread to multiple AWS services. So about, I think at peak, about 60 different AWS services were affected whilst it was happening. Basically, any system relying upon the AWS internal network for customer functionality was affected. Status updates were really poor because for a period of time, it was still noted that it was AWS Lambda was the only majorly affected product, and that a number of our products were partially affected, whereas that wasn't necessarily the case for a number of those products. It was a total of 9 hours of service disruption. Now, what happened? Well, it was actually really boring and traditional behind the scenes. So for all of the cloud native and everything else we've talked about, what happened is we had an automated change which caused a connection storm on the AWS internal network. So there was a scale-up event for one of their services, a bunch of systems came on, there was an error which caused a whole connection storm on their AWS internal network. Now their AWS internal network is different to what we use as punters. Right? It's purely, as you imagine, purely for their internal, how they do all of their internal connectivity. First problem, monitoring failed because their monitoring relied upon the internal network to scrape data. So they had no telemetry to work out where the problem was. So they had to go to the logs. And so they were grepping logs of all of the services to work out what was going on. So the first issue they saw was a number of their internal services was failing because DNS resolution was failing. Why was DNS resolution failing? Because it was on the internal network. So what they did is they moved that to their public network, mitigated that, and that resolved a number of the issues. But didn't resolve everything. But again, even with something as big as this, everything is a friggin' DNS problem. All right? Another thing that hampered their progress was their internal deployment system performance was degraded because they couldn't get the deployments working because their internal network was basically down. So the time it took for them to push their changes out on their internal network was hampered. So what ended up resolving the issue totally was a number of manual efforts to isolate and scale affected network hardware, which is what they did, which is what got them out of the bind and resolved the issue. But I thought it's just, an interesting one. US East 1 is particularly vulnerable for these things. It's where for a long period of time, it was the default AWS region for you to deploy in. It's also one of the first places that they canary. It was the first one they built, so it's got a number of legacy issues. So you will see US East 1 does have this sort of continuous flow, and everyone's like, avoid US East 1 if you want to, if you can. But just as an overview of what it is, even with the cloud, it's someone else's problem. It's still infrastructure at the end of the day. It's still traditional problems. Next. Out. I've been fork off. So why can IBM fork off? Well, before we talk about this, we need a little brief history of the Red Hat OS, or RHEL. So for those who don't know, Red Hat Enterprise Linux is a slow-moving enterprise distribution of Linux that Red Hat provide. Slow-moving, stable, it's what they provide a number of their support services and support contracts around. A number of enterprises signed up to it. Fedora is the upstream, fast-moving distribution So this is the thing that gets all the latest and greatest software updates. Whenever there's new versions of software, it goes into Fedora. And people generally who subscribe to Fedora are like desktop users and stuff, and they want new. So it's a good testing ground for these things. And over time, it slowly moves down into the Red Hat Enterprise Linux when it's been tested and there's community feedback and it gets hardened. CentOS was a community-maintained version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It was something that sat in the middle. It was for people who were like, well, I don't really want the fast and furious of the Fedora, but at the same time, I don't want Red Hat Enterprise, the slow of the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I want somewhere in the middle. I want a stable base, but I want to be able to have some of the upstream changes. CentOS came under Red Hat control in 2014, and then what they did is they changed it from CentOS to CentOS Stream. And what that meant is that instead of it being this community-driven, we're going to take these changes that we want and we cherry-pick, it becomes basically Fedora in that it was getting a constant stream of updates. So it kind of lost its place. So a number of the community said, okay, we don't like that, we're going to branch off and we're going to create our Linux, Rocky Linux. We're going to basically make our own CentOS again because we don't like the changes that they made. And what they did is they took their code from git.centos.org as the base of that, and they built their distributions off the base of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Red Hat recently decided to move their code behind a customer portal. And when they did that, part of that was Red Hat customers and partners can access Red Hat Enterprise Linux sources in accordance with their subscription agreement. And it just so happens that the subscription agreement states republishing sources acquired through the customer portal would be in violation of that agreement, essentially cutting off Alma Linux, Rocky Linux from accessing or being able to access the code that they've been basing their distributions off of. Right? Now, this is a big deal because from a Red Hat perspective, they're like, okay, there's these companies who are out there, they're freeloading. We're the team who's building all of this. They're just basically building a distribution based on everything we've done, and they're providing enterprise support services for their distributions, right? But the community says, well, actually, that's not how it works. Linux is a community-driven product. You didn't build everything in Linux. You didn't build all of the sources. Yeah, you built part of it, but you're part of a wider ecosystem. And, becoming proprietary should not be the basis for competition. So this is where SUSE, I think, did I get that right? Did I get that right? Good, because I've never had to pronounce it before until this presentation. There you go. Announces a Red Hat Enterprise Linux fork. And it's important to note that it's a fork, and what they're not doing is a bug-for-bug compatibility. And what that means is that they're creating their own base, and they will work to try and make it as in parity and non-breaking as possible, but they're not guaranteeing that it will be bug-for-bug-like, because what they're saying is they can't guarantee that Red Hat isn't going to do something else in the future to try and cut them off from accessing what they're doing. And there's various ways of them doing that, which is they can make things rather clumpy and difficult to unpick. Just because they release the code doesn't mean it's in a format that's easily accessible or reversible. So they've decided to invest $10 million in a long-term project of creating a new Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based base that will allow other distributions to build and do what they did before. Now, their play, they're not doing this purely for the love of the community. It's obvious that their play is by creating this base, they're encouraging enterprise users to use their distribution or use one of these distributions. And over time, maybe use their services instead of using Red Hat's. But I think it's an interesting reaction in the community where this is one of the first real sort of tests of that sort of open source community spirit versus locking things behind a firewall. Yeah. And that's it for me. So now we go on to the talks. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. So, where are we? Oh yeah, Ashley. As I say, I met Ashley like a very long time ago, probably like 30 years ago, right? So, Ashley's got a great presentation.